morning. Want to call to order the Tuesday, August 17th, 2021 regular meeting of the Hendry County School Board. At this time, if so led, please stand and join us in the invocation and pledge. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you don't mind standing in honor and in memory of Mr. Horace Mixon. Mr. Mixon spent his career in the maintenance department at the Closton Bus Barn. Mr. Mixon will always be remembered for his very gentle demeanor and huge smile and willingness to do anything that was needed to keep kids safe on those buses. Thank you. Mr. Superintendent, would you like to introduce the presentation today?
Absolutely. In keeping in step with the request of the board to have presentations to update the board and the community about what's going on with various aspects of the district. As y'all know, one of the first things that I had asked and requested of the board upon being elected was the fact that I had recognized there was a lack of cohesive leadership to the principals, a lack of direction with regard to the instructional leadership, a lack of focus on driving academic achievement. And in order to shore up that, you as a board were very gracious in allowing the leadership to hire Ms. Teresa Duncan and Mr. Sanchez that handles the elementary education and the secondary education respectively. The two of them have done a phenomenal job, and they continue to make great strides in what they are doing with regard to focus of academic excellence. It's a lot of work. It's an enormous battle. It's something that's never been done in this county. Pretty prevalent in larger districts. For a rural district to do it, it's very, very unique, and I appreciate you allowing that to happen here. Today, they're going to speak to you about various aspects of what they do, what they see, and what they manage on a day-to-day and what their day looks like throughout the school day. So, with no further ado, Mr. Sanchez and Ms. Duncan.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to share kind of the work that we have been engaged with, and then also share some plans that we have for the future as we move forward from here.
So one of the first things we did this year, looking at entering a new school year, is trying to come together with a theme and a mission and a way to just encompass all the passion that we have as a district and the goals that we're trying to achieve. So together we came up with a theme, all in, all the time, because as Hendry County, we want to be just that, all in, all the time. 100% in, 100% all of the time. So that's kind of the model that we're living by this year. We're hashtagging it with hashtag Team Hendry everywhere we go. We're facilitating some different shirts and different avenues to really help facilitate that theme, and really just talking with our leadership and across the schools. No matter what struggles we have, we are all in all the time, and we need to keep that motto going.
Yeah, and it's been really great to see a lot of our schools adopt this belief and this mindset. I mean, I've seen beautiful bulletin boards at the elementary level
Central has one,
that they have created. I've seen people put this on their email signatures. I'm waiting for someone to tattoo it on themselves, but you know, that's a work in progress.
So we are putting together shirt orders for that. We hope to get you one soon as well.
All right, here's our brief agenda for today. We're going to talk about some things, some highlights from last year, plans for this coming up school year, and then if you have any questions we'd be happy to answer them at any time or afterwards. All right. One of the things that we were really tasked with at the beginning of coming on board early last year was to really emphasize the collaboration that needed to occur. As you heard Mr. Swindle talk about, there was a huge need for that. There was collective expertise and collective capacity within our schools, but a lot of that was not being brought to the surface, was not being highlighted, was not being shared. A lot of it was thought of as proprietary, to the individual school or the individual department. And so we have really emphasized is sharing those practices, sharing that expertise across, getting people to collaborate and talk to one another, as simple as that may seem. It's things that in all my years that I was at Clewiston High School, I was telling Ms. Duncan earlier this morning, I said, I never got to do a walkthrough with Dave Kelly at LaBelle High School. We never did a walkthrough together. We never sat down and actually planned, the initiatives and the strategies that were going to propel our schools to move forward. And so we have really emphasized that a lot. We've done some work with the curriculum mapping. You want to talk about that?
Sure. So the curriculum mapping, we have spent multiple days over the last 6 months with the Clewiston side teachers and principals and the LaBelle side teachers and principals coming together and working on aligning our mapping so that we are consistent on both sides and the expectations between both sides. So as we went through the new curriculum purchases and ideas for next year, we looked at those standards and the best standards, and we met both horizontally and vertically with our grade levels to make sure that all of our maps were updated with our new curriculum, that they were updated with the best standards, and we really spent a lot of time talking about the rigor of standards and what it's like to teach to the standards. And so that is an ongoing practice that we will have this year, a meeting to really take those standards to the rigor that they're supposed to be to help drive that academic achievement at every school level. So when we talk about the IT streamlining of programs, we've had the pleasure of working with Mr. Adams and his team. One of the things that we've observed as Mr. Sanchez and I came on board was with 6 elementary schools, 4 secondary schools, everybody was doing something different. And as Mr. Swindle was encouraging us to kind of drive that unification process, we have worked alongside with Mr. Adams to identify the various computer programs that are out there amongst all of the schools, what are the advantages and disadvantages of those programs, and we have data to show that those programs are working or not working, how much are they being utilized, and where can we look at reducing those programs and getting really just the appropriate outcomes. Are they being implemented with fidelity and so forth? So Jason's been very thorough and very good at communicating and collaborating with us on just the program aspect, and as we look at our schools individually, we talk about renewal of programs. We really try to come up with, is this something that our schools really are using? Is it something that's benefiting us? Is it something that they need? And then we've put forward a new process where any new programs that the schools wish to request or purchase, it needs to have some sort of communication and collaboration with respective director to make sure that it is a need and it is something that's going to be utilized with fidelity, and then we'll collaborate with Mr. Adams to make sure that on his end, as far as the technical aspect, that our district supports it technology-wise.
Okay. We have also done a lot of work with equipping our staffs at our schools to transition to the best standards. This past year, we really focused on the ELA best standards. This coming school year is going to be focused on the math, as we make that transition to the best math standards. All right, grant writing. One of our greatest pleasures has also been that we have been able to assist our federal programs department in taking some of the load from them in terms of assisting with the grant writing process with Title II, Title IV, UNISIC, and SAI.
Some of the things that are great about working with Dr. Mundy on those programs is those are directly related to the academic instruction of students, so we can help support, facilitate the overseeing of those programs as well and how the funds are disseminated. As far as the school support, that's been really a phenomenal thing, and Mr. Swindle had indicated basically, you're always the extra principal on duty. You're always the extra hands on deck when needed. And boy, did we find that out this past year. So we spend anywhere from a single day out of school to 2 months if needed out of school. And that really is our pleasure to be there to support our administrators if someone's out sick, to be able to just be those extra hands and to help facilitate anything that we need on our campuses. We are definitely a principal and administrator hotline. So one thing we've tried to do is, instead of principals having, all these people to call and try to figure out who to problem solve with them, where to get an answer, we've streamlined where everything that they need comes through their director, and then the director will help facilitate and figure out the answers to their questions. So just it makes a point of contact for them. Anything from just venting for the day, dealing with parent complaints, how to handle certain situations, really whatever they need for us to be the support with. And then we had the pleasure on July 19th, I don't know if we have a picture of that in here or not, but we had the extreme pleasure of having all principals, assistant principals, we have deans too, deans, as well as our leadership team for a back to school meeting. And I think it was the first time in maybe known history that all of those team members were together in one place where we were able to collaborate and meet across the county with all our leadership and really just come together with our missions, our visions, talk about the 3 pillars that Mr. Swindle's vision is for this coming year and how we want to move forward with guiding our schools to be on the same page with those, because again, we are #Team Hendry, all in all the time, and we need to be representing each other and building that collaboration across the district amongst each other.
Yeah, and so it was really nice to be able to give everyone, spend an entire day with our principals and our APs, and be able to give them those clear guidelines, those expectations, give them the knowledge that they need to be able to more efficiently run their buildings. Another area that we were really, that there was a huge gap in was in instructional leadership. When you're a principal, a lot of the work that you do revolves around 3 spheres, like managerial leadership, just running the day-to-day operations of school, the political leadership aspect. But really, at the end of the day, what we get paid to do is to help kids learn, and that goes into instructional leadership. And so we start off implementing from Clueston Middle School's work with the Bureau of School Improvement. We really got connected with the learning walk process, which is basically monitoring what is going on in the classrooms, and then looking at trend data in those walkthroughs and developing action plans for improvement. We were able to get together it's called the Hendry Instructional Leadership Institute. You'll see pictures of it here in a little bit, but basically where our principals and our district staff were able to do walkthroughs at Clueston High School and then begin to build that common vocabulary, that common understanding around effective instruction, so that it'll help pay dividends in terms of the academic improvements that we want to see this school year.
So just to add on to that, one of the things that the elementary will be doing this year is all 6 principals and myself will be traveling once a month to each school site and doing walkthroughs of at least 5 classrooms at each site, and we come back together and talk about the feedback for each classroom in each school and how we can help each other improve, because we have so many great minds out there amongst the 6 schools or the 10 schools that it's really important that we share that knowledge of what's working and what's not working, and just be a good facilitator of knowledge to each other. So coming into this summer, we really had some opportunities for professional development. We had a lot of things going on over summer with our pre-week and some state level trainings and so forth. But one of the trainings we had come in to provide information to us was specifically on the science of reading. You can see here's a picture of our reading rope. And so we had a trainer from Benchmark come in, and they really facilitated a lot of good collaboration and training with the science of reading.
Okay.
And then we also had Max Scholar come in-person training. So last year, it is my understanding that there was obviously COVID and so forth, that all of the trainings were virtual. And so there was some struggles with everybody really feeling confident about their ability to teach and know what to do with that. So we did have Max Scholar come into 3 different locations. They came to the Cloiston side, they came to the LaBelle side, and we had a full day in the secondary as well. And so this is our lovely trainer. She spent 3 days with us. Here's a picture of some of the teachers training. We had over 100 teachers participate in the training, and I felt like it was a really good opportunity to just get a better understanding of the program and how to implement moving forward.
Okay, here you see some historic pictures of Mr. Summers and Ms. Bass doing walkthroughs together. The principal at Clueston Middle School, Ms. Kelly, meeting at Clueston Middle School with Mr. Klinger, the principal at LaBelle Middle School. These are unprecedented pictures. I mean, literally history was made in terms of being able to get, and look at this one. This is where Ms. Bass and Ms. Howard, the principal and AP at LaBelle High School, met and discussed instructional improvements with Mr. Summers and his administrative team there. All right. We had our administrators get some training over the summer. Some of them were able to go off and get some training this summer, collaborate. I had a chance also to do some walkthroughs in other counties last year to just develop my own instructional IQ to help bring that capacity back to our district in Pasco, Pinellas, and DeSoto County. There you see a picture of Mr. Swindle presenting the hard-earned Buck Awards to our partners, our thought partners and accountability partners in the Bureau of School Improvement after the successful completion of the first inaugural Hendry Instructional Leadership Institute. And then we also had some cross-county collaboration with the elementary principals from DeSoto County coming over and doing some walkthroughs with our elementary principals on the Clueless side here last semester. And these are all things that we look forward to continuing. The more collaboration, the more idea sharing, the more that we're able to develop our own instructional IQs, the better our students are going to be off next school year because of that. And that's a group picture of the Hiley. That's back when we were doing the social distancing and the masks.
So here's just some back to school fun. So another part of our mission is just really increase school culture, the district culture for a positive. And so Mr. Swindle and I, Mr. Sanchez, and Mr. Swindle, we all went out during the back to school week and made sure we visited every single school. So here's just some pictures of our fun time we were having visiting all of the schools, getting to meet their staff. That was part of our goal, was to get to every staff meeting, back to school staff meeting.
And we have really stressed to our schools about how important positive energy and positive momentum is when you're trying to go through an improvement change process. And so it's been a great first school start. I mean, I think I've seen probably more positive energy than I've ever had in terms of this school year starting compared to previous years.
So the top picture here is the HEC Consortium came down and participated in our first new teacher induction day with all of our new teachers coming to Hendry County. They brought in a ton of prizes. So that's the top picture of our team, our new induction team. And then on the bottom, you'll see just a lot of the new teachers for Hendry County participating in our first day of orientation and really getting acclimated to the policies and procedures with the district, helping build them up to know that they are part of Team Hendry.
Back to school pictures. Okay, and just real quickly, in terms of plans for next year, we're going to continue to support, guide, and coach our administrators, continue to see that implementation of our transition to the best standards, specifically in math for this upcoming school year, and then social studies the following school year. Continue to strengthen that learning walk process and really defining our common language of instruction, common understanding, supporting our schools in the very important PLC process, because the PLC process is sort of the tree of life to instructional improvements, right? It's where it all begins. Teachers understanding their standards, understanding their data, understanding what they need to teach, and designing instructional strategies and activities that are going to best help students learn.
So he talked about the learning walk process, in the PLC process. We heavily involve our reading coaches who are going to have the pleasure of presenting to you in just a few weeks as well. The coaches are a vital part of that PLC process. They help drive that leadership component. They help facilitate what's going on in those PLCs. And we have been tasked with many new House bills regarding literacy this upcoming year, as well as our own literacy initiatives. And so the reading coaches are definitely meeting with us and doing some ongoing training and collaboration on how to best implement the new reading model, implementing a reading plan, and really just making the school level impact that they need to drive their school level instruction.
And so we're going to continue to finalize and work on the strategic plan. We also have a lot of work to do in terms of rebuilding our leadership pipeline. This past year, we had a lot of folks that were tapped into new leadership positions, right? So we're going to work with HEC on an emerging leaders program for aspiring administrators from our teacher ranks. This year, we're going to have 4 meetings with them throughout the year and task them with different activities to help build their resumes in terms of preparing them to be competitive for like a dean position or an AP position. And then we're going to continue to do everything we can, our human ability, to support the 3 pillars of this school year, which is positive culture at every school, striving for academic improvements, And then, of course, making sure that every single student is as literate as possible in order to be a successful adult and an engaged citizen one day of tomorrow. All right? So with that, we'll turn it over to you guys. If there's any questions, that's our recap.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez and Ms. Duncan. Go ahead, Mr. Samuel.
We were talking about the new reading model, the new reading plan, and the new curriculum. Now, the new curriculum is new this year, so all our teachers have been trained in it the last couple of weeks.
Correct.
How's that proceeding? Always knew when we had a new reading curriculum. It was a lot of work initially.
So I'll speak to the elementary part. The elementary curriculum, again, they came in, Benchmark came in and did the science and reading, went over all of the materials with us in person. We have luckily had all of our supplies already here in-house. So that was great. Benchmark curriculum focuses specifically on the best standards, and so it was really nice to be able to take our curriculum mapping that we spent multiple days doing with the new curriculum and then facilitating along the best standards with the trainers. So I think that they had a really good opportunity to get their feet wet with the new curriculum as well as the best standards. It's an ongoing process. The new curriculum for sure has a lot of rolling pieces. It has a whole virtual set K-5, but we also bought the books and hand components as well. And we had 2 representatives from every school along with their principal meet. I say 2 representatives from every grade level at every school meet, and we performed 3 days of curriculum mapping. So we took the curriculum hand in hand, we took the best standards hand in hand, and we kind of mapped out our year of what that's going to look like. Now, like any given plan, there's going to need to be revisions. So we've scheduled 6 meetings throughout the year with those same team members to come back monthly and talk about what's working with the curriculum, what's working with the standards, what's matching with our map, where are you on your map, what do you see is what's working, what do we need to remediate, and then we will come back together and then create any changes in that map. Our goal is that if Johnny goes to Central, he's within 1 week of academic curriculum as the same week of the curriculum on Mobile Elementary School, if that makes sense. So we really want to strive to be within 1 week in that map of consistency amongst our district. So I think those ongoing meetings will be vital to doing so and hearing the voices of our teachers and making sure that we are moving forward with that.
Yeah, and we're going to piggyback off of that at secondary. We have Amplify. We adopted an Amplify curriculum at the middle school level. High school, we postponed it 1 year because we were not happy with the available choices. Hopefully, there'll be more available choices this year so we can adopt a new curriculum at the high school ELA component. But I think that ongoing support and coaching is going to be really vital for us to be able to monitor, get into classrooms, using our learning walk process to really take a temperature and a gauge in terms of how that implementation is going along, because we are going to have to make those adjustments and frequently monitor that to modify as it evolves, as the implementation evolves.
Well, I think it's really important, like you mentioned, if they're at Central and they're in the 3rd grade, in the 4th week, and they went to LES, they're in the same curriculum at the same time. So I think that really supports those teachers, and when they get together, they can talk about the same thing. So it's a bigger team than it used to be, I think.
And it's interesting you say that, because one of the things we noticed with math mapping, we had them vertically aligned. And so there was a lot of vocabulary we discovered in vertical alignment that it was the same concept, but the words, vocabulary in grade 2 was different than the vocabulary in grade 4, like talking about angle, acute angles and different things. So they're just helping them develop the connection between the grade levels, and establishing the vocabulary was eye-opening. They're like, oh, you really did teach angles, but you taught them under a different name than what we taught. And so I think them collaborating just makes so many aha moments for us to all learn and to be able to move forward together.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned about the lack of collaboration between the principals when you were there. What major change have you done since y'all started? What has been effective?
I think just, the emphasis that the directive we were given by Mr. Swindle to collaborate, we're a district of 10 schools. I mean, we shouldn't have all these different directions that we're all going in at all. And so just being able to have set meetings together, begin that dialogue, that discussion, has been instrumental.
Okay.
So I would just add on to that, we have monthly meetings that combine all of our principals together, and And one of the things, at least that I've done in the elementary part, is I've also created a Google Drive where it's Elementary Principals Drive, where, if you're doing a form for third grade retention, you shouldn't have to do a form for third grade retention. Like, we should all have the same kind of form. So we are collaborating on the forms that we use, the best practices that you use at your school. How can we share those with each other and make sure that we are sharing that wonderful knowledge that they each have, so they're not always trying to recreate individually at 6 different places. We are building on the strengths of each other. And it's been very great to see. And we've also paired them up where there's a principal on the LaBelle side paired with a principal on the Lewiston side, and they have like a partnership and have like check-in time with each other to help build that cross-collaboration as well.
Yeah, and like at the secondary level, one of the things that, I brought in all the principals, all the APs, all the deans, all the coaches at the end of July, and we just had a good 4-hour meeting about common expectations, common, directions, so that we're all on the same page in terms of the work that we're all doing this coming year.
That's sort of my second question I wanted to ask that. There ever been a time where, or going to be a time where from your office that you would address the staff, teaching everybody at one time, one sitting?
In terms of doing like staff meetings ourselves?
Just as all the teachers in one area and you give your pitch or what your office do?
Well, we did go to every school at their back to school meetings, and we had an opportunity to speak to them. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, as a group, not just in, never did that.
Like all schools?
No, just one school, all the staff.
We do go to their staff meetings and participate as much as.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but in terms of like doing presentations at each school.
Like what your office does, that you would
okay,
tell them
gotcha.
what your office does.
No, I don't think we've had the opportunity to go to speak at each individual school in terms of everything that we're doing sort of like this.
Oh, okay.
I do think the principals advocate on our part, will say.
Right.
They will
They will
communicate,
say.
because I've noticed more and more when I go out to schools, the teachers call me by name now much more often. They seem to have a better understanding of who I am and what I'm doing there. So that's been a piece, just going around and making sure that we're introducing ourselves to teachers and that we are building those relationships with them as well.
Okay. Thank you.
That was what I kind of touched on that. I was going to ask you that. Are you guys strictly just with the administrative staff, or are you actually going in the classroom?
Yes, I definitely go to classrooms.
Classrooms.
And building that relationship?
Yes,
Because
yes.
then I think they would have more trust in what you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely, and we noticed that very much so. I got to spend a few weeks at Central, and now when I go in there, I have like all of them running to me, in different capacities. And so it is important as far as building those relationships. And my office is now at LES, so I have a lot of time to go out and collaborate with those teachers, and just being able to randomly walk in and know that it's not a gotcha moment. It is, I'm here to support you and see how you're doing, and to be able to have those conversations.
And then at the secondary level, are you guys meeting monthly as well?
Yeah. Principals meeting, monthly. Yep.
Just principals or principals, APs,
Principals.
deans, everybody?
Principals.
Only
Principals. Yes, sir.
We had talked about trying to figure out a way to include APs. It's hard because you want to leave an administrator on campus. We got to make sure the schools are covered too. But that is a communication piece that we're talking about, is how to get more time with the APs. So it could be just us going to the sites and working with them. And when we go out to meet with the schools, I often do ask that the APs sit in any conversations that we have, so we can collaborate with them as well.
Well, you guys were so informational. I'm over here just scribbling away. I have a few questions and comments as well. I'll start with my questions. You guys touched on providing oversight for program implementation. So is that going to be like your responsibilities for, say, program XYZ, that you are going to be checking in on the schools under your purview and ensuring that these schools are?
I think it's fair to say that, it won't be necessarily a sole responsibility. There's some, like Max College, for example, I still have to collaborate with Dr. Staley and Mr. And so there's certain times when we have to contact IT to make sure I can pull certain data and so forth. But that is our goal, to be the head curriculum component, so that, again, there's one accountability partner, but in collaboration with those that are pertinent to the information as well.
So more specifically, if, let's say that it comes to light that a program wasn't being implemented with Fidelity, who's responsible for that? At the end of the day, like, where does the buck stop?
Buck stop for us.
I appreciate that. In that oversight, I know that you would be reviewing diagnostics and information that can give us a good idea of where we're going to land on our standardized tests. And so if you get into a diagnostic situation where you see a particular school or a grade or something is performing poorly, are you a part of that recovery plan?
Yes.
And, putting that plan, an action plan into place of how to go to this particular hotspot and do the remediation and help the principals and school staff?
Yes, so for example, one of the schools we're dealing with, and we're going to present on data for you in the next meeting, but without saying too much ahead of time, one of our schools did perform a little bit lower than the others, so we're already triaging with that school and meeting one-on-one, coming up with a plan of action and being able to support that administrative team on their action plan, providing additional resources and through funding sources to be able to help them figure out their plan. And they're doing a great job at running things by us to make sure that we're on the same page, that we think that those are good ideas. And then, of course, we'll be out there monitoring implementation as well.
Okay, very good. And you were talking about the instructional leadership development. What would you consider your measurement of success? And then I'm not going to leave it such an open question, but I heard you talking about like classroom visits. So which classes are we going to be focusing on? I think it's easy, you would want to take folks to your best and highest performing classes, but I think, you might want to keep an eye on the classes for, non-certified teachers or non-education major teachers.
So for me, I'll let you speak after. I'm having at least six classrooms at every site, and I kind of encourage principals to pick 3 of your strong teachers and 3 of your ones that maybe aren't as strong, and then don't tell me which is which, so that I can go in and kind of observe, get feel, and come back and have that conversation of what I observed and noted. I also have a goal personally of having a map of every school and making sure that I physically, personally have observed in every single classroom at every single school, not necessarily part of that walkthrough official team, but walking through on my own behalf.
Yeah. So at the secondary level, there's more volume in just in terms of classes per building, right? So we would need to do a lot more than 6, probably 12 to 15 walkthroughs every month. And I will select those classrooms and I'll email the schedule out to principals. So we are going to hit up it's going to be around random. It won't be, let's go to your best classrooms or anything like that. It'll be focused on the state assessed subject areas to move the needle in terms of performance.
Fantastic. I know just as, back in I'm an old person now. Back in the day, just like everybody, the majority of our teachers had education degrees. And I know that, we're taking a lot of folks who may have had a business degree and they're coming in and challenging the test and getting their certification. But that is, I think that's essential, particularly considering the change in the teacher applicants and providing that support.
That's also a charge that we're giving with our reading coaches and principals too. We're really trying to charge the reading coaches for being the ongoing instructional component within their building for those teachers who are maybe not certified or are new to the district, to help them really have the support that they need in hopes of retaining them for future jobs as well. And as we strive to be instructional leaders, our hopes are to build capacity amongst our principals too, for them to drive the leadership within their own schools for instructional.
I like what you guys said about the administrative talent pipeline and helping develop that with HEC. I would be interested to hear more about that and the steps you guys are taking. District culture and positive energy. I noticed that you listed culture, academic improvements, and then literacy. And so I would say, I'm not afraid to make a bold statement, but literacy, putting that up front, will drive your academic improvements, which will drive your culture. And, I've been preaching out of that for a long time, that book for a long time. And so I hope that, I really do think for authentic culture that achievement is the cornerstone of that, and literacy is the cornerstone of that achievement. We're talking about, getting all on the same page here. And one of the things I've always been curious about is we've got some schools doing AVID, we've got some schools doing Leader in Me, we've got some schools doing houses. Is there going to be a movement to bring everybody into one common program like that? Because I mean, what I see now is like we've got like, and what I'm most familiar with is Clewiston. We have the one elementary school doing Avid, and I think that leads in well to the secondary, the middle school, who's also doing Avid. But it kind of concerns me for ones who may not having that continuity, so they go from houses or Leader and Me into a whole different platform.
That's definitely something we can work on, although, just to speak to the other side of that, and
They want autonomy. I
and
get it.
working with culture, yes, we have done a lot of taking away that autonomy already, and so we're trying to tread lightly on certain things. So there's certain things that are no-goes. We are doing this, together and moving forward. Positive PBIS is something that Dr. Staley's passionate about, and our district is passionate about, that maybe we can move forward with more uniformly amongst all of the schools. Can that be embedded across Leader and Me, Avid, and so forth without removing those? I think that it can. So for example, West Side just got bypass status. It would be a detriment at this point to try and take that away from them, because that is the one positive that they are really clinging to. So as we develop culture and we move forward, increasing academics, that may be a conversation that we can start to have down the road. I don't think it's an immediate change, but it's definitely worth being on our table, on the plate, and having conversations, especially as funds need to renew and things like that. But it is the one positive that I see, at least on the Clewiston side, that they are really clinging to drive their own emotional satisfaction. And so we'll tread lightly on that one temporarily and then move forward as a team as appropriate.
Okay. I think that wraps up my questions and comments. Do you have anything, Superintendent? Anything else from the board?
I want to get that model right. All in and
All the time.
All the time. Okay.
So speak to that, Mr. Sanchez. Where did we get that?
All right.
From the Navy SEALs, it's their mantra.
Oh,
Because you better be all in all the time when you're a Navy SEAL. Not, but just as, they have human lives at stake there, so do we.
Absolutely.
So do we in the work that we do. And so there's really not that big of a difference, from that perspective.
We'll get him a shirt with that on.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah, get your shirt.
I'm just glad to see that you guys are getting all the principals speaking and everything, because I remember one board meeting, I wasn't on the board very long, and there was a discussion of having trouble with summer school and enough teachers. I said, well, did you ask so-and-so, anybody else at another school? You'd have thought, oh my goodness, the cardinal sin. Asking if they talked to other teachers at another school to help them. So I'm glad to see you're actually getting people to communicate.
Well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Good job.
Extra large.
Thank you for your presentation. As we move forward, is there any citizen comment on agenda items? See no citizen comment on agenda items, we'll move forward to the consent agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that a board member would like to have moved down to action item? Okay. At this time, Superintendent, do I have your recommendation on the consent agenda?
I recommend the favorable consideration and approval of the consent agenda.
Have a recommendation of a motion? So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda passes unanimously. Moving forward to action items, new personnel allocation request. Superintendent, may I have a recommendation?
I recommend approval of the new personnel allocation request.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? New personnel allocation request passes unanimously. And moving forward to board member business. First on the list is discussion about redistricting. And I know we received some supporting documentation, actually an email from the Hendry County Board of County Commissioner Attorney Mark Lapp, just outlining the way that the county commission, we're going to have to work in tandem with them, how that is, the process would go. So I didn't know if you had anything specific to lead on this one with.
So are all of you familiar with the background? Do you need any further background or information or explanation of it? Y'all are all good?
You explained it to me earlier, so.
Okay, all right. So yeah, if you don't need any further explanation, you need a recommendation from me? Because I think we need to vote and make that official, don't we?
I can speak to that, yes, thank you. I'm not sure that it requires a vote, but I don't also think that it would be a, bad thing to take a vote. But basically, what the superintendent needs is direction from the board that you want to move forward with the same process that you took about 10 years ago, where you are working in conjunction with the county and redistricting, where I think it's an engineer, is going to, take the data and draw up different maps. And then those will be voted on after some joint public hearings where the boards get together. I think they're trying to look at doing 2 of those in the November timeframe, because the one thing is that this does need the entire process has to occur in an odd number year. So it has to be done by the end of the year. So I think what they're looking for is just the idea from the school board that they want to move forward with that process in conjunction as they have done in the past. And then the next step will be looking at dates for those joint public meeting hearings of the boards.
Is there any other processes? I mean, or is this, I'm completely unfamiliar with it. I was not even in the game 10 years ago.
So my understanding is that the county is doing this and they are going to use the engineer and the algorithms to make sure the districts are aligned. And be clear, we're talking about your voting districts here, not necessarily who attends school districts. And they need to be kept as equal as possible with regards to demographics and population. If we don't go along with this, then we have to go through the process ourselves and hire that said engineer and do it all on our own to probably wind up matching what they're doing anyway. So it's basically allow them to handle it, and we just kind of go along and agree that we're going to accept what they do. It's my understanding. Please make sure I'm not incorrect with that.
Yes, that's true. With regard to the process, though, at an upcoming meeting, we'll probably come to you with some dates, and we'll have to, work with the county on those. But what we're looking at, because of the time frame of finishing the process in the odd number year of 2021, is last time, and I believe what they're looking at this time, is having 2 joint meetings with the boards where there are also public hearings where they go over the proposed maps. And then after that, each board will vote on it at their own meeting. Okay. Or at least that's the way the process happened last time, but I think they're anticipating this time. So right now, they're just looking at the data, trying to figure out their maps, and hoping to have those proposals ready for the boards to look at in November, I believe.
So once those maps are drawn up, if we don't like them, then we can go our own direction then, is that right?
You could, because it's, something that you're voting on, and I do believe they come up with a couple different proposals. But one thing that is nice is if the county and school board vote on the same map, then you do have the same electoral districts, which you've tried to do in the past. And as the superintendent said, they do try to keep it very, consistent. This is based on census data, so the changes aren't really so much that they want to make changes. It's just, as demographics change, they try to keep things as consistent as possible. They definitely keep all of the elected board members, within their districts. So, it's not, it shouldn't be anything that changes things too much.
Excuse me. I was in the process last time they did this, and exactly what they do. The county commission sort of takes the lead, and we just sort of follow along. We agree with what they're saying. It costs a lot of money to do it yourself.
Yeah, I know. That's what I heard. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Heard the cash register
Yeah.
on Going Road there. So thank you for that institutional knowledge.
Yeah.
Seasoned veteran.
Moving my head.
Got some stories to tell.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can go ahead. Do I have a recommendation on the redistricting discussion?
Yes, ma'am. At this point in time, I recommend following the county's lead and working in conjunction with Hendry County for the redistricting process.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously for the accepting the, going along with the county commission on redistricting. Boy, a lot of sentence fragments. Moving forward in board member business, item B is an insurance discussion. And do you want to cue this one up?
Sure. So, like it or not, agree with it or not, we have to have and provide insurance for our employees. It is, we all know the state, where we are with regards to insurance within our country, our state, and our community. And there are some very interesting things that transpired and have taken place. Ms. Cox has worked very hard along. Dr. Egley has assembled an insurance task force within the district, and they've worked very diligently. We also have Ms. Teresa Conley in the audience, and she's our insurance consultant. I want to make sure I didn't mess that up. And she as well has been working very hard on yours, and our employees' behalfs to present what you're going to see here today. Ms. Cox has got a presentation. And I don't know if you're going to do it in tandem with Ms. Conley, or I know Ms. Conley's going to weigh in and have pieces of that. Once we have their presentation, if you have questions of that, feel free to ask, and then we'll make sure everybody has very good, clear, and deep understanding, and then we'll come back to a discussion. Ms. Cox?
I'm going to let Ms. Conley start us out. She's worked with the district for, at least 10 years, helping with our medical insurance. So I'll let her speak to some of our claims and premium history, and that'll help facilitate the review of this presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Teresa Conley, and I am with Cyber Insurance Consultants. I have been working with the district now for about 10 years. Prior to that, I'm not sure the tenure here of everyone, but Al Waters had been here as Waters Risk Management. And I have been working with Mr. Yanisek actually for a very long time. Then I worked with Mr. Seeley, and now I'm working with Dr. Egley. So what I bring to the table, a little quick background about Cyber Insurance Consultants. I am not an agent, I'm not a broker, so I don't receive any type of commission or remuneration wherever you place your medical insurance. I am purely a consultant, and the school district is my client. So I am paid by the school district, and I am here to provide as objective opinion as possible as to where we are with renewal, what your benefit plans look like. And so historically, I have done, I believe, 4 medical RFPs for the district. The last one being when you moved to Aetna for 1/1/19. I worked on that project with Mr. Yanisek, and I have worked on the renewals and reviewed the medical renewals since then. So 1/1/20, 1/1/21, and here we are at 1/1/22. So one of the big things I was working with Mr. Seeley was really bringing forth a relationship with your insurer. Depending on how long you've been here, you know that we have jumped around a little bit. We've had Florida Blue, then we had United, then we had Florida Blue, and now we have Aetna. So the good news is that I have all this information. I mean, I can go back 10 years and provide you your premium, your claims history. I've got a really good understanding of where you've been. There have been no plan changes in quite a while. So when I spoke with Mr. Seeley back in about January of this year, he let me know he was going to be retiring, let me know there were going to be some administrative changes, and so the renewals with Aetna have been very, very fair. When we moved to Aetna 1/1/19, we took a 10% decrease in the rates with Florida Blue, and then 1/1/20, it was a 2.27% increase, and 1/1/21, it was like a 2.4% increase. I mean, they've been very, very minimal. To give you history on medical and prescription trend, it is very normal for a 10 to 12% increase on trend alone a year, which obviously outpaces any type of salary increases, any type of contribution structure. I mean, it is very tough. It is the number one thing it's the number two spend for any of my clients next to salary when we look at medical benefits, insurance in general, but medical insurance. It is always a challenge annually. So I knew that I'd be working with Francis, and I now have met Dr. Edley and the superintendent and Sarah. And so what we have been working on the last 2 weeks really hard is this renewal that was brought forth with Aetna. And the renewal started at close to 22%. So that is a significant increase, right? And what I was hoping to work on was to see where we could get to a palatable rate increase, if you will. The claims experience is not very good. So that is the other thing that has changed historically with the school district. You know, group medical insurance is tough. You have a number of people that drive the claims, and that unfortunately can drive a whole bunch of claims experience. So it's usually a small group of people that drive a majority of the claims is where I'm going with this. And so one of the things we always want to be cognizant of is a couple things. We want to make sure we keep as many dependents on the plan as possible. We want to prevent adverse selection. Adverse selection is basically when you get all the sick people that just stay on your plan. And so you're not getting those who need insurance but really don't use it, but they contribute their premium. So we have good positive premium along with those who are causing the claim. So we want to find the balance, and really the school district has done that. Unfortunately, the last year, even with COVID, the claims history is running close to about a 96 to 98% loss ratio. For a while, it was under 80%, meaning that you were paying more out in premium, they were paying less in claims, and that was giving you these lower increases at renewal. So this current increase at 22% sounds very high. However, we have stayed under trend multiple years, and now your claims experience is a lot higher. So I've gone back with Aetna, worked on a couple things, and basically what we're presenting today and what we discussed in detail with the insurance committee yesterday is we have got increase down to 6.8%. If we add in, or when we add in the additional $50,000 premium credit that Aetna has given, we're at a 6.2% increase, which I know is not zero, but you're never going to get zero on a medical. However, starting at 22, getting down to 6.2, I'm very pleased with this. I think with the claims history and what we're looking at, with what they're projecting for the rest of 2022, because don't forget, this is for January 1 of 2022. So they're trying to figure out what they need in premium, what they're going to pay the remainder of 21, and what they're going to need in premium for 22. So with that, I do have to mention, I mentioned earlier, no plan changes. So one of the things I brought to the table, we talked about where the claims experience were two places. The first change, so the 2000 plan or your top PPO plan is almost where all your employees are, okay? Employee count is significant. You almost have everyone in that plan. So the ER copay would be moved from a $125 copay to a $300 copay. I know that sounds like a big change, but it actually matches the $6,000 PPO plan. So it is a move copay-wise, but it provided a pretty significant increase. And what that does is it really pushes people to go to an urgent care first. Okay? I have a number of clients, districts included, that ERs don't have copays. They're deductible co-insurance. So I still consider having a copay a benefit for those who really do need to use the ER. The second plan change would be on the prescription copays. There are actually quite a few brand name prescriptions that probably could go generic, but the copay is pretty low. So what we proposed was an increase in the prescription copays. They would be $15 for generic, $50 for brand tier 2, and then $85 for brand tier 3. I still think that is quite in line with the majority of where my clients are. In addition, I confirm that if the cost of your prescription is less than what the copay is, so for example, I went to Walgreens the other day, my generic drug was $4.83. I paid $4.83. So you're not going to pay $15. That would be the highest you would pay on the generic. You would pay the cost of the actual drug. And I think that's really important because a lot of generic drugs really have come down in cost the last few years. So what this is going to do is if someone wants a brand name drug, they're really going to have to put a little more effort into thinking about if they want to pay that $50 or even the $85 to do so. We don't have any prescription drug requirements in the current plan. There's no mandatory generic. There's no specific programs in place that really make you drive to a generic, so maybe increasing the co-pays would help that a little bit. Those are the only two plan changes. On the table, we also looked at increasing the deductible, looked at increasing the out-of-pocket, but I think those are significant plan changes, and I don't think the school district, at this time, to my knowledge, really wants to shift that cost over to the employees. I don't think that was the main goal here. So these are two, what I would consider smaller plan changes to get to this lower increase. So what we discussed with the insurance committee yesterday was all of this. We provided reporting, we looked at premium, we looked at the renewals, we talked about these plan changes, and on the table from the committee is a recommendation to accept the renewal from where it is at the 6.8 plus the $50,000 credit from Aetna.
Okay, so I'll walk us through this slide or this presentation before we get to any questions. Know that this was prepared last week before we got the final renewal from Aetna. That's why I sent a document out to you all late yesterday, and I gave you a handout this morning as well. I'm going to kind of cover this quickly. As Teresa mentioned, we're approaching year 4 renewal with Aetna. We started out with a 21.3% premium increase that was originally proposed. We've gotten that down to about 6%. The board contribution towards medical insurance per full-time employee is currently at $8,624.40 per year. I know that you all hear a lot about the $9,000, but that is actually spread between medical, life, and dental. So the $8,600 is just the portion that goes towards employee medical. Here's the historical look at the board contribution versus premiums, and you can see that we've increased the board contribution over the last couple years. But what I want to point out to you is that in the 2021 year, you can see our contribution at $8,600 isn't even meeting the annual premium at $8,900. If it wasn't for a $300,000 credit provided by Aetna, we would not be able to cover those premiums. And that $300,000 credit was not just a one-time thing. It was actually $150,000 provided per year between the period of 2 years, but we decided to defer it 1 year, and we took it all in the 2021 year. So as we go forward and look at the information, just keep that in mind that the board contribution is already behind where the premium is. So some of the options going forward, again, this was prepared last week. We continued, or Teresa really continued to negotiate with Aetna on our behalf. We are pleased that we've gotten it down to around 6%. We did look at rebidding. You know, when Aetna first submitted their proposal, I was like, no way, we're rebidding, like this cannot happen. And we could still rebid should the board choose to do that. However, we're compressing a 6-month process into 2 months, which would then cause us to postpone open enrollment from October to November. And because we start collecting medical premiums in December, we would really be crunched for time to get all of this done before December. And then, of course, there's no guarantee that we're going to get a better rate or better proposal from another provider. What we should really focus on is long-term solutions, and I'll speak to that shortly. We can look at rebidding for the 2023 renewal. We have considered the potential plan changes. One possibility is a consortium. Are there other small districts like us who want to get together and use our power to have a better purchasing power for medical insurance? Another thing is, do we want to consider going self-insured? You know, that there's a lot involved in that. I don't know that we could even make that happen for the 2023 year, but I think it's definitely something worth exploring and seeing if it would work for us. So this was prepared last week. I'm going to go to the handout that you all received since this is the most recent information. If we look at the 6.81% increase in the top chart, this is without the $50,000 credit. And I presented it in this way because one thing I would like for you to consider is Do we leave the plan rates at 6.81% and use that $50,000 credit to offset some of the dependent plans, so that way the impact is not as costly to our employees? Or do we want to take the $50,000 credit overall, which would lean us towards that 6.23% increase? So that $50,000 credit would be used to help offset the board and employee costs. So you can see here the proposed annual premiums for both scenarios, what the current board contribution is, and the increase that that's going to cause. You know, I added this annual increase to the employee column because that's a fairly large increase to our employees. Should we not have any plan changes, as Teresa just went over, we would be looking at more of this 12% scenario, and the financial impact ultimately for the district, and I only looked at this in the general fund, of course this would impact our federal funds as well, since we do hire staff from those, but at a 6.81% increase, we are looking at an annual cost to the general fund of $754,000. 58% of that would be incurred this year because we would collect 7 months of premiums, and this year that would be starting in December, going through June. So that would equate to about $437,000 in the current year that we would need to budget for this increased cost. If we went with the 6.23% scenario, it's still a significant increase, almost $712,000 annual cost, with about $413,000 incurred in the current year. You know, this also has an impact to our retirees. We would be increasing rates for them unless the board would choose to use that $50,000 credit to offset their costs as well. And as Teresa mentioned, you know, most organizations are facing larger increases than 6%. We do know that DeSoto, Hardy County, they're facing 10% increases, so we are really happy with the 6% that the final offer that we've gotten from Aetna. So my recommendation, and this was the recommendation of the insurance task force members, is that we do accept the proposal from Aetna as it is, with the either 6.81 or 6.23%. And we look at rebidding in 2023 and exploring the other options of a consortium and becoming self-insured. So that concludes the presentation, and we'll open it for any questions.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Samurai.
I have a few questions, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Hey, self-insured is on my mind. When I was on the insurance task force, when I was with the Teachers Association, we were self-insured. And they were done with a company called McClory out of Stewart. And you still have to have somebody manage this, because you still have to get preferred providers for hospitals, for every doctor's office and so forth. Somebody has to go around and contract all that. It was a huge task for them. And what happened was, with that, you also had to have catastrophic insurance as a rider. And we are past then, and still now, we are a high-risk group. When we look at our claims here, as we did in 2008, 10, and so forth, we are a very high-risk group. So our cost for our insurance is much higher than different groups, because a lot of our teachers are older groups. They have health issues, they have cancers, and so forth. So, I mean, I think we could look at self-insured, but when we were self-insured, we had to get out of it because we got clobbered. And so, you know, that's it. Then I was looking at the family coverage right now. For a family, for one of our employees, is $17,000. How many employees do we have that are buying a health insurance for their family of $17,000 a year?
In that plan, 10.
10. And we have 1,000 employees, approximately.
You do not have a lot of dependents on your plan in general.
Well, my point is, if we have 10 and 1,000 employees, you know, it's cost prohibitive. It's a third of their income it's more than their rent. So I just bring that out as a point, because when we're on this, we went through all this, and it was like a snare. You get caught in this. When I was looking at the 6%, I'm surprised because the cost at the hospitals, everything that I hear is going up so significantly. I was surprised that our cost was at 6%. That's my impression for this year. I mean, when the committee made that recommendation, I'm sure they did a thorough job of looking at it. And maybe you could do an RFP, but I'm not sure. We've done RFPs for 20 years, on and off. Way before you came on board, we were doing RFP. When somebody comes in, the first year when we went from self-insured to insured, I think it was Blue Cross that year. And they gave us sort of a sweetheart deal. John McCormick, who was our person from the agency that did that, he said, I can't touch that. We can't touch that, being self-insured. And the deal we were getting, because their network is so great that they can cut their costs in other ways. So, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
So you deal with multiple insurance companies then, negotiating rates or?
No, that would be more on an agent perspective. So as a consultant, if we were to bid, I would be looking at the different proposals that the insurers would bid. The players would be Aetna, Cigna, Florida Blue, and United. That's who you would potentially receive a response from. But I don't bid this out annually I don't shop it for you, if that's what you mean.
Okay. So the consortium route, we discussed a little bit about that with the superintendent's office one day. What is your feeling on that, on the consortium route, getting the bigger group together?
I mean, there's interest. I guess there's been a little chatter about Hardy and DeSoto maybe looking at joining in on a consortium. There are a couple consortiums from the state, not school district. There's PRM, Public Risk Management, which does both property casualty and benefits, but that are medical insurance, but that is for like smaller cities. So, I mean, I also work with cities, counties, smaller municipalities. They're way too big for them, so they would never bid on something like that. And then there's another consortium that uses United Healthcare as their administrator. But this would be maybe more of a newer undertaking to see if, the three or if there were other districts that were interested in going in together. Now that would take time, and there's legal stuff behind that as well. You have to create a consortium. So there is, and I did look it up before I got here, there is one single school district consortium on the west coast over here, and they have a clinic, and I'm still drawing a blank, sorry about that. I worked with them, it's been a while, 7-8 years ago, and as far as I know, there's still a single district school consortium, which is not common, but they're also really big on clinics, and so they have HealthStat, I believe, last I heard, running maybe like 3 clinics for them. I work with a handful of other districts, Pasco School being one of them. Pasco now has like 6 clinics on site. But most of the time when you start talking about clinic administration, you're looking at a self-insured program. That's when you're going to switch because you want to be able to grab all the savings from those not going to the medical plan that are now going to the clinic. I mean, it's a process. But with a consortium, I think it's an idea, but that's basically what we talked about was sort of getting over this renewal for 1/1/22. And starting the RFP process. I mean, we would start in January of 2022 for 1/1/23. We talked about meeting with the insurance committee more consistently, getting more board input, and starting to bring maybe these more long-term solutions to everyone so that we can not have to deal with a 22% increase.
I think that would be something that we would definitely be beneficial to the district to look at a consortium, a bigger pool of people. I understand it could hurt you as well. If you have more, like you said, the cost is driving you up. There's that smaller group that's claiming. It just depends on, I think it would definitely be something worth looking into. For sure.
I want to make the comment that the self-insured terrifies me. And I'm making my statement based on just looking at health statistics. particularly in rural communities. They're not very good sometimes, oftentimes. I know that, our statistics, even in Hendry County, when compared to those on the coast, there's a marked difference. And also the thought of, I have just some topical knowledge of a company that has a self-insured plan, and that they actually have to have people petition the board for procedures that they may find unnecessary. And I would personally rather be set on fire than have somebody come in front of us and tell us, hey, I need this surgery, but they're saying it's, not necessary, so can you guys make a decision?
So what you're talking about is fiduciary responsibility. And when you do go self-insure, there are some issues with fiduciary responsibility, and actually the entity itself does have the final say. This is a huge issue at Highland Schools. I'm the consultant for them as well. And I have a very strong stance on that. But yes, there can be those instances where you have someone show up at the board that has a child that needs an experimental procedure, and they have come, it can be emotional and sad, and it can be tough. And the answer is no, unfortunately, because I have a very strong stance that what you do for one, you actually have to do for all. You would need to make a plan change to make sure it encompasses everyone. But that's really more than the nitty-gritty of what self-insurance is, but the fiduciary responsibility is what you're talking about. And when you are fully insured, the insurance company is the fiduciary. So they have an appeals process, and that's actually been quite expanded through the years of healthcare reform. But you go through the appeals process with the insurance company. That's how they handle their fiduciary responsibility.
I'm willing to make decisions on a lot of things, but other people's health and their children and situations like that, absolutely not qualified. So just my 2 cents on that. Thank you for the work that both of you have, and the insurance committee have put into getting these numbers together for us. But circling back to what I said on the rural health outcomes and statistics as opposed to or urban areas, it would, when we say consortium, the first thing that pops into my head is like Heartland Consortium. And, you just mentioned we've got 2 other districts here that are at 10%. And so if we're looking at consortiums, I would love to see, trying to incorporate with bigger counties, as opposed to, people who are probably more in the same boat, or even getting together. And I'm sure, I think Mr. Basswood's even said this before. And I maybe, if I'm mistaken, just tell me I'm crazy. But it is, I think you talked about teaming up with Hendry County.
I did.
Okay, all right, I'm still on. And within our own county, as opposed to bringing folks from the outside, consortium with our municipalities here, the City of LaBelle, City of Lewiston, and Hendry County Board of County Commissioners. And that might be something worth exploring there going forward. But I know that we're in crunch time now.
Yeah, I do think that could certainly be something we can vet out for the next year. You have to remember administratively what that looks like.
Yes.
And you have multiple different entities and all their different purchasing processes and what that means contractually coming in. There is work behind making a consortium, but I do think it's something we can look into and discuss.
How much work it would be for you to reach out to people and start making some connections and see what it would take to, interest out
Honestly,
there.
I would defer that to Dr. Egley.
Couldn't hear.
Working with other counties to see if there's any interest in a consortium.
Once we get past this recommendation, we do plan to meet more frequently, have more robust discussions with our insurance benefits task force, because we don't want to leave any stone unturned. We'll have time to look around. We'll have time to investigate, if I'm correct. And that's what we want to do, because this insurance business is not getting any cheaper. You know, the price of eggs, the price of milk, the price of gas is going up. Insurance companies know that. They're going to inflate it. Jesse James used a gun when he robbed people. These insurance companies use premium adjustments. So we just have to fight this the best way we can, and the collective wisdom, working with a consultant that is a rock star in that area. She will guide us, and she will keep us from going into the ditch. She'll keep us from going down the rabbit trail we don't need to go down, and we can fine tune and focus on trying to get the best deal possible, because we all have a vested interest in this decision. And she said it early on, Ms. Conley, the price of insurance premiums and most everything else in our society today is far exceeding the little raise increases we get. So yes, sir, we plan to make this a very high priority topic moving forward.
Thank you.
And specifically, Mr. Basquin, your question was, will we network with other people to see if they have interest? And I've already spoke to 4 of my colleague superintendents who have said, we're not telling you yes, we'll do it, but we absolutely want to be at the table and talk about how it will benefit everyone involved. So the answer is I've already started that process, and we already have interest.
Phenomenal. Awesome. Thank you.
And just to reiterate, I'm going to share with you what Dr. Demchek shared with us yesterday. Dr. Demchek also works with other counties in our area, and he said they're facing 10 to 11% increases.
Right.
And our consultant got them down to 6.2. So she told me very early on, never take by force that which you can achieve through negotiation. And she has been the great negotiator. And I am tickled with the offer she got and presented to our task force yesterday. And it was unanimous, a consensus across the board with HCEA and HESPA. They all said, please let the board know we support this recommendation, and then we can start looking at other options for the years to come.
Fantastic. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. Thank you, Ms. Conley.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments from the board? All right, Superintendent.
Okay, so I'll just kind of reiterate one more time and very quickly in the summative form that this process has absolutely highlighted the ever-growing expense of insurance and health insurance that our county is facing and all counties are facing. We realize and see the gravity of needing to do some research in the coming months and of better ways to do business, but yet still provide high-quality health insurance that our employees can have here in Hendry County. We are committed to working with all those entities, our consultant and the insurance task force to go through that process as quickly as possible. I would like to say I appreciate the insurance task force, Dr. Egley's work, Ms. Cox and Ms. Conley, for everything that they have done. Although this is not where we want to be, without their work, we would be stuck paying and facing a much higher increase than where we are today. I have a letter of support from the Hendry County Education Association pledging their full support of this proposal. And so based on the letter from the HCEA, the Insurance Task Force, and the presentation that you've seen today, I propose that you approve the presentation as presented. And I would recommend that it be the bottom plan on the renewal proposal of the 6.23% using $50,000 to buy down the employee premiums. That's my recommendation.
So moved.
Doing it yourself today. All right. We got a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The recommendation to approve the insurance rates, the premium increase at 6.23, passes unanimously. All right, at this time, is there any board member business by district?
No, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you did. Count on it.
I look forward to this opportunity.
I know you do.
All right. since I've been retired, I have more time to watch the news. And one of the things that's coming out of Lee County now is their demand for bus drivers. They can't find enough. They're changing bus routes. Their kids are getting lost. They're just behind hundreds of bus drivers. And so they're advertising on television, they're advertising on signs and so forth. So I wondered how are we faring with our bus drivers and our service? Mr. Busen could answer.
Sure, I'll give you the intro, and then if Mr. Busen wants to chime in, he's more than welcome to. We actually were down just a couple of drivers on either side of the county. Mr. Busen and his team went to a couple of different job fairs within the county, and they are always doing some efforts to recruit from in-house, ask those drivers that we have that know the business to reach out, and they did that with some pretty good success this year. He's also gotten some signs. I don't know if you brought any of them in today, but he's gotten some signs that he's going to be putting around the community. He's got some handout cards that we can leave at just various places to kind of do a little bit better outreach and some PR for those positions. At last conversation, I know as early as today, he received an application. I think we were down 1 or 2 on either side of the county, but overall, that's kind of about where we typically run. So the route managers and mechanics at various times have to go and help, and especially now if you have said drivers that are sick or suspect sick because of COVID, then the team overall swings into action and makes it happen. The short answer to your question, we're nowhere near as in dire straits as Lee County, but we are looking for a couple on either side of the district to be whole. Mr. Busen, anything to add?
Just want to be very clear about the vacancies on both sides. There is a huge demand. We made some cards. We have some yard signs that are very similar to this. We also have a 4x20 banner that we received this weekend. We're going to be putting them up on a bus on either side, and put them in strategic places to try to get the word out for bus drivers. We have been talking to 2 bus drivers for the Lewis side. One got his application in last night, so as soon as this meeting's over, I'll set up a face-to-face interview for them. So that will go all right and well. Our route managers and our mechanics step in when we have people that are sick or taking time off. My route manager and LaBelle is driving this morning, and the mechanic is driving this afternoon. But the flex drivers, it's like the substitute drivers, we're trying to fill the need and the void of that.
Thank you. It sounds better than I'd hoped for. Thank you, Mr. Busen.
Sir?
I said it sounded better than I'd even hoped for.
Well, we need to keep plowing through, sir.
I can depend on you. You know what? I know you work hard on all this stuff, and I appreciate it. Thank you. On that, I had another. Go ahead. All right. Watching the news again. COVID is on the news, and every headline all day long, on the national news, on our local news. I do watch our website, keep us up to date. So far as people being quarantined and positives, we're very low. I just wondered, because not everybody looks at our website, I was wondering if our superintendent could briefly go over our COVID policy.
Yeah, okay, did you say go over the COVID policy?
Or our policy, school board policy.
Okay, you didn't want an update on where we are with how?
Sure.
Okay, all right, I just
sorry.
wanted to be sure that I answered exactly what you asked. So
Yeah.
the dashboard data that's on the website is the most accurate way to keep up with where we are with the COVID numbers. Is a tiny bit of lag. It's about as real time as we can get. As we send teachers or students or any employees out to get tested, we will not add that number on there until we have a positive confirmation from the health department that was a positive test. Sometimes we know that we have a said employee that was sick and we sent to get tested. It doesn't show up right away. Either it wasn't COVID, number one, or it just takes a day or so to get that information back onto the dashboard. So we printed it off this morning so that, but you're right, it's relatively low on here. We know that we got several out pending test results. We also know that there are other things going around. We've had at least 2 employees for sure, and then one other person that I happen to know that had symptoms that mimicked COVID. Low-grade fever, zapped energy, headaches, sore throat on more than one test, not COVID. And so there are still other things circulating around as well that are not COVID. Having said that, we are in constant communication with the Department of Education. We are following the guidelines that the Department of Education has put out to be a template for all school districts to use. And so we are testing on symptoms. We are quarantining. I was hoping not to quarantine. I was really hoping in my narrow-minded way that we wouldn't even have to face COVID this year, but here we are, and we are absolutely facing COVID. And so we are quarantining. We are following the state guidelines. 10 days is the time that they are out unless they get for the quarantine, and then they can come back after 5 days with a negative test. Is that correct? 5 days?
They can take the test at day 5.
Okay.
They probably won't get it for 2 more
Right.
days. So typically it's by day 7
Right.
they can come back with a negative test.
They could at day 5, but you just can't get the test back fast enough at day 5. And so outside of that, our district understands that we have employees. We have employees that we're asking to come to work every day where we have a high propensity for the virus to be contracted. So we're trying to do everything that we can with regards to what we provide our employees. So we're doing 10 days COVID sickness where if they contract it. Overall, that seems to be working pretty well. We kicked around multiple ideas and we went back and forth, but the 10 days is where we landed. The one thing I would say is, and even though we've known about this for way north of a year now, this is still an ever-evolving situation. Data changes, the virus itself changes, the needs of our employees change. So what I'm telling you today is what we're doing. However, we are adjusting in real time to do what's right and to take as best guarded care we can of our students and our teachers. There's a lot of minutia out there right now about wear a mask, don't wear a mask, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Right now, we're following the Department of Education's guidelines of we will not require masks on our students or employees. So until that guideline changes, then I have no desire to change that. What we did realize is that organically, a good plenty of them do it anyway. And so we're not seeing the need really to fight that battle. So we're noticing the kids on buses. For the most part, I passed a bus yesterday morning, and every student that I see, we're at a stoplight, I wasn't driving and not watching the road. I was watching the kids, and every child that I could see had a mask on. When we went to open houses, we've seen large numbers of students have masks, and parents also wear the mask. So I believe organically, the mask situation will take care of itself. Although we know we have some that don't. Again, there are medical reasons why some don't. There are parent rights why they don't, and employer rights why they don't. So I don't intend to get into the fray on that at this point in time.
Oh, I knew that our primary concern was the welfare of our children.
Right.
We also want to get them educated, so we want to keep them there. But like you had reported, most of the children are wearing masks. Most of our children are administrators. I mean, we're working on social distancing. We have the hand cleaning going on. So I think we're doing reasonable in our efforts to maintain a healthy environment in our schools. But I want to do, because I want the public to know what's going on in our schools.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, and we are, and that is a good point. We continue the sanitation, the spraying, the wiping down, and even on a more frequent basis if we have problematic areas.
Thank you,
Yes.
sir. That's it for me.
All right, thank you. Mr. Baskin?
Yes, ma'am. I actually had a parent ask me today, so I want to ask the superintendent. School selection for children. How do we go about our school selection for children?
I assume you're talking elementary school.
Elementary level.
I
Yes.
assume, do you mean Clewiston or LaBelle? Because there is a little bit of a difference.
Okay, well, can you explain the difference between the two?
Yes, and so in LaBelle, we have zones, and depending on where you reside, because of the school locations, dictates where you go. Okay, and if you have a specified reason why you would want to move your child, then we look at those on a one-by-one, case-by-case basis. We were getting ready to embark on that redistricting as well, because there's a lot of talk about that, and I want to make sure there was no confusion about the redistricting. Because of the exponential growth that's occurring in the eastern side of LaBelle, Country Oaks Elementary is experiencing at and over capacity. And so we're having to do some adjustments real time to accommodate for that. So we're looking at shifting those boundaries now to accommodate for the growth in LaBelle. In Clewiston, said students, because the 3 elementary schools are side by side, therefore removing the where you live element, And so as students register, they come here to this office, and we have an overall person here that watches that. And as students come in, they make sure that the correct number of students and the correct demographics of students are distributed equally among schools.
Okay.
According to school capacity. So it may not necessarily be 300 at each school,
Right.
because the school capacity may be larger or smaller than another one.
Right, so I mean, if a parent wanted their child in a specific school,
They can make that request.
it.
Right, and depending on availability and spacing and what extra seats we have, then we work on those on an individual basis.
Okay. Very good. I can relay that if they're not watching.
Sure. Yep.
Thank you.
You bet.
Ms. Nelson?
Yes, and actually this is going back to the bus drivers, Mr. Beeson gave me an idea. If you will get me some of those cards, I will happily take them back to the chamber and we can distribute them in the newsletter, on the Facebook page, and help promote that.
Yes, ma'am, I have my truck and get it to you after the meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
You want some signs also? Some
I'll
other
take some signs.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm all about that. Bring
Thank
it.
you.
Okay.
Yeah, I take some.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. I want to piggyback off of what she said, Mr. Beeson. And if I could get some of those, I can help get the Clueston Chamber on the same case that
I just need a couple minutes to get out of my truck after the meeting, and I'll be right back up.
chop,
Right
chop.
now. My bride may want to go.
I want to say thank you to our staff, to our administrators, our parents, transportation in particular. That first week of school is typically a doozy, with everybody having to be real fluid and adjust our sails to catch the proverbial wind. And I know that it has been, because of their efforts, it has been a relatively seamless transition to get our kids back into the classrooms, and that's thrilling. Thank you to our transportation department in particular. I don't know if folks have witnessed a school zone on the first week of school, but it is next level traffic. And I know that moving kids around and getting to your stops on time has been challenging. And so, thanks for hanging in there, and thanks for everybody pitching in together to make that happen. I would like to make a request just for the administration to think about is, I remember going to I'll date myself, Clueston Elementary School, which is now East Side and West Side, and there was absolutely no established traffic pattern there. And you can only imagine what a disaster it was, because now this is where you go, this is the lane you turn in, and it's very, that there's a process there. But what I have noticed, in particularly like at Clueston Middle School, is in the first week of school is just exacerbates an issue that's there throughout the year, but there really isn't an established traffic pattern there. And I think it's almost to a point of creating public safety issues.
But to be clear, at the elementary school?
No, I'm talking about at the elementary, what I was talking about at Clueston Elementary, when they established a traffic pattern, it got better.
I see, you said there is one there.
There is one there, but not at the middle school. And so you have people waiting to pick up their kids, coming from all different areas, sitting in the road on the opposite side of what it's pretty scary. And then you can see some road rage bubbling there as well. And so, it really, I think, rises to an issue of public safety. And I was wondering, I don't know if that would be a Mr. Beeson question or a Mr. Brown, about working together with our school administrators and maybe our law enforcement in establishing a traffic pattern. Because, I'm not just being dramatic, but it's...
Well, we've already gone into law enforcement and we've started some conversations over the last week.
Very inspiring.
And that's on our to-do list.
Okay, awesome.
But the problem is to make it effective and not piecemeal. It's going to take some planning. It's going to take
absolutely.
Satellite photos and getting the county involved, the cities involved, and it's going to be more than just a quick fix. But it is going to be addressed.
Thank you. I
Can't tell you when, but it will be addressed in the very near future.
That's wonderful to hear. I know that the parents in the pickup lines will be very appreciative of that effort. So thank you for that. I think it's gone on for a long time, so just willing to address it. I know that there's even issues on Cowboy Way, just it being a two-lane road and with multiple schools. So thanks for getting ahead of that one. I wanted to go back to what Mr. Sammernight said when his discussion on COVID. I was reading where Babcock Ranch School had to close it down. They had sick staff, a lot of sick kids. Do we have an established metric that we would use to say, all right, this is where we have to close this down for a set amount of time?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and we've had that question over the last week a lot, by the way. And so the metric is simple. What our job is, what we doing? Are we protecting and teaching and serving the children? And so the metric is, as long as we've got staff and we've got that handled, then we need to keep our schools open. So the metric is when we cannot safely and effectively cover and teach as children, that's when we have to do that. Now, so far, more so on Ms. Duncan's end, but on the elementary schools, we've had a couple flare-ups here and there, but they have been able to shift enough staff around to cover it and to handle it while those teachers are out sick. So we're going to continue to do that for as long as viable.
Okay, thank you. And another thing that I saw, and then I had parent calls about, were school visitors. And I think one school has already said no outside visitors, and I think one school just recently implemented no outside visitors. And that's concerning to me because, we get up here and preach that we want our community involved in our schools, we want our stakeholders there. I think that, it's good for our transparency for parents to be there if, these are, kids are coming from their homes anyway. And so it's not like, I don't know if that would, the decision for that would be like mitigate COVID spread, but these students are coming from these homes anyway, and they either are or are not wearing a mask. And I think that at this point, that declining outside visitors isn't in alignment with our policies on school visitation, nor the COVID procedures. And, I think as long as they're not, our policy states that the school administration has the right to say, no, this is not you just can't bust in there and want to hang out with your kid during middle of instructional time. But I think that, if we're going to sit here and say community engagement, then we need to make that, we can't take that away from parents. And so that's my 2 cents.
I believe there might have been, just to clarify, I believe there might have been some misinformation getting circulated around. There was some on a case-by-case basis, and even on a school-by-school basis for various reasons, some of that going on, and some very legitimate reasons. As a district overall, though, we have not shut down visitors, and what we are saying is, again, on a school side-by-side basis, request what you want to do, request your event, and we will handle that on an individual basis, depending on where we are with staffing, depending on where we are with COVID infectious rates and stuff like that. And so our job and our goal is not to keep people out, but yet to keep everyone safe within.
Madam Chair, so Mr. Swindle, so we have a lot of parents who like to come and have lunch.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're trying to keep at a minimum.
That's correct, right. Little things like that, at this point in time, you're bringing more individuals on campus.
Okay.
And so we're...
So like the Rotary Spaghetti Dinner, that's
an after campus, after hours,
yeah.
Right. That will be cleaned before, cleaned after.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, right. So things like
I've
that.
had parents ask,
Right.
when can I volunteer?
Yeah.
Well, are you coming to volunteer or do you want to come bring Johnny McDonald's?
Right,
So
right, yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah,
Not
absolutely.
that we would love to have volunteers back, but
Yep.
again, I think safety first.
Good point. And then I just want to say I was able to release a little more information now when I extend an invitation to the board and the superintendent. But on September 9th, our friends from the Palm Beach County the Palm Beach County School Foundation, Education Foundation, and is helping us out with an amazing project that is being sponsored by U.S. Sugar. And they are doing a pop-up teacher store where our teachers can register online and pick out their supplies and come through and pick them up. And so I would like to invite all of you guys to come and participate and hang out and help load up supplies. And
Is that going to be looking?
this is going to be, it's going to be a pop-up store in front of the U.S. Sugar corporate building on Ponce de Leon. I will get the exact times to you. I'll send out an email to let you know when it is, but I just wanted to,
What date?
September 9th. And I will send an email with all the details on it, but I wanted to thank U.S. Sugar for doing this for our teachers. It's amazing. And a very special thank you to the Palm Beach Education Foundation. Our local Education Foundation just does not have the capacity to do a project on this level. And so I think it's pretty awesome that they're coming and doing that here in Hendry County for us. And that would be it. Mr. Superintendent?
Okay, I would just like to take a minute. Number one, I would like to say I thank you. I appreciate the board's support, number one, with the insurance, and also the support with that you have shown the staff. I think that y'all realize the gravity of the duress and stress and everything that they are under. We have been short-staffed for a very long time. I know Ms. Cox has been down 3 individuals in her department. I know that the HR department, 2 of the 3 of them were out at one time. The one that was there had only been hired for 1 month, and that was when we were onboarding new teachers. Dr. Mundy herself has been ill here lately. This is only her 2nd day back to work. And so that continues to roll through and have a profound impact on what we do. Nonetheless, we still had a solid start to the school year. I was getting calls and emails from Ms. Cox, still in the office working at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. The HR department, even with COVID, were working from home, and then they were coming in on weekends and working hours and hours. The route managers and transportation folks were working on weekends, setting up routes, working 12, 14-hour weekends. So those are the hearts, those are the employees that we have. And so I appreciate y'all recognizing that, supporting that, and doing what we can to realize that we have great folks working for us today. And we want to expand and show our appreciation for them. Our school year really went off with just normal, I wouldn't say without a hitch, but the normal hitches that you would expect on the beginning of the school year. We do, and all the principals that I've talked to, and to your point, Ms. Pewson, we have, the principals are saying that they are seeing unbelievable record numbers of people dropping their children off and picking their children up. I don't know if they don't want them on the bus, I don't know, for whatever reason, I don't know. But there is an enormous amount of folks transporting their own children this year, causing some of those traffic issues that are exponential, no doubt about it. The Sheriff's Department has answered the call. They have deployed extra folks where we've asked them to, Cowboy Way being one of them. And I've seen quite a few of them here this morning when I was coming through town. So I would like to say thank you to everyone involved. Say a huge thank you to our schools, principals, teachers. The open houses, we have never seen the turnout of parents and students at open houses since I've been involved with Hendry County School System. That's a very, very long time. We have a very solid number of students back in school. Our enrollment today is as solid as it's been for a couple of years, and we're probably north of where we left off at the end of last year. So that shows everyone's eagerness to get back and engage the school system and wanting to be a part of what we do. So I just wanted to make sure that I took a minute and informed you of that, and informed you that we did have a good start to a school year with a lot of positive energy and culture. And I think that that's indicative of the team and the initiatives that you've seen presented here earlier today. At the last meeting, I asked you to please reserve some time for an executive session. We will not need an executive session for this meeting. However, I will ask you to plan on one at the first meeting in September. So that'll be where we will need an executive session. So please plan on one then. Thank you. This, if you do, as you well know, this is our first and inaugural daytime and morning meeting. I think it went very well. I know some of you are out of work, so we'll try to keep that to a minimum. But thank you. I think it went great. I think it went off just exactly as we hoped it would. If there are no questions, that's all for me.
Is there any further question or comment from the board? All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?